This week on Today's Homeowner, we're opening up the floor plan in an older home that's been stuck in the 70s for quite a while. We're making it more attractive and functional for the new owner who has some interesting history here. If you can't quite remember what a 70s style house looked like, well, I'm right in the middle of one. This is a den that has the typical old dark wood paneling, and I remember the dark floors that they had back then, and this apparently was from the 70s. I mean, look at the traffic pattern and basically the trench running right down the middle of this room. Now here's something else that was very typical for a den, to have site-built, built-in cabinets. This is where the trim carpenter actually did all the work out here. No cabinet shop involved. And remember the old console TVs? I can see it tucked right in under here, and the family gathers around watching that one television they had in their house. Boy, things have changed a lot. Hey, as far as a typical 70s kitchen, man, this hasn't changed much, with the smooth doors like this, a little bit of molding around them to dress them up a little bit. The old antique finishes on the hardware, that kind of faded away. Fur downs up above the cabinets here. I never understood why anyone would want a fur down. It takes up a lot of space in the kitchen when you can have the cabinets extend all the way to the ceiling. Butcher block countertops, remember that? I've seen acres of this stuff in kitchens from this time frame. And stainless steel sinks, well, popular back then and fairly popular now. Hey, what about this floor? Sheet vinyl floor with all these patterns. Boy, you'd get tired of that pretty quick, but nothing really dates a kitchen as much as these beautiful designer colors. I think they used to call this harvest gold, and they're in fairly good shape, but I'm sure the homeowners will want to replace this. Now, back when this house was built, it was probably considered kind of an open floor plan, with this opening and kind of an opening here looking out into the den. But this isn't near as open as these homeowners want it. The plan for this project is to remove the wall between the kitchen and the den, as well as the one between the den and the formal living room. This will create one large room of almost 800 square feet. The kitchen will basically remain in the same spot, with the sink and stove moving just slightly. But now this nice size island will be the only thing separating the kitchen and the family areas. Now that's a lot of work, but the owner of this house has a history here.
We first came here in July of 1979. My father and mother decided to move here from Arlington, Virginia. And my mother was from Mobile, so this was her home, birthplace, and she grew up here. And my parents came down here and picked out a house. My father then went back to get the money to pay for the house. Had a massive heart attack, didn't make it down here, but my mother and I still moved here. My mother, you know, she had a stroke and she's ill and she wasn't able to live independently. She had a car accident and she had to go into the hospital. And so she had given me the house a number of years ago and wanted me to have it. Well, the work that's going on now basically was something that we decided we needed to do because the house was so outdated. And it was a small kitchen, had an overhang to it in the old butcher block style. And I have a wife and 3 kids, and we wanted to open it up as a large play area. So we wanted to get rid of the wall that separated the den from the living room.
Well, they wanted it open, and that's what these guys are here to do. The old paneling cabinets and ugly yellow appliances are on their way out. Now, I mentioned earlier that these were site-built cabinets, which means they were custom to this house 40 years ago. But it also means they're almost impossible to remove without completely destroying them. The worn carpet and paneling, they have to go too, but before the center wall can come out, the guys have to put up a temporary wall to support the ceiling in the living room. Then it's back to demolition. The weight carried by these studs Mark is removing will be transferred to this laminated veneer lumber beam. Now, once it's properly positioned and secured, the drywall can be cut out around it to open up this room for good. All signs of the 70s are gone from the inside of this house, and the homeowners are really getting the feel of how much space they have to work with here. Another thing they didn't realize is how much light they would gain from the 3 large windows in the front of the house, even influencing the light level back in the back part of the house. Right now, we're tying down all the little loose ends, getting the last little bit of demolition done. Mike's in the process of a pretty aggravating thing here, having to get all of the last little bit of backing from the vinyl flooring, and Mark's in the process of cutting out all of the little patches that we'll have to make in the drywall. But fortunately, we were able to save the majority of the drywall and all of the insulation up above it. That helps a lot on the budget. Now, since we had all of the paneling on the walls, Chris is having to go around and kind of check every single stud to get all the screws and nails that are left over from all of the cabinets and all of the paneling. But it won't be long, we'll be able to get all of the walls back up on this project and move right along. Now, we've had to do a little trenching here. This is a pretty tough part of demolition too, so that the electrician can run a line out to the little island cabinet here. It's always a good idea to have an electrical outlet in a freestanding island like this. You know, we've only been on this project for 3.5 days, and as I mentioned earlier, it won't be long before we have all the new walls up. I love this kind of remodeling, and I love those tips that Joe shares with us every week.
One of the very best ways to save energy around the house is to seal up air-leaking cracks using caulk, particularly those around windows and doors. In this case, you notice we have a crack along the bottom here. It's only about 1/8 of an inch wide, so we can take care of that by just taking a good quality caulk and filling it in, and then coming back and wiping it off. What you end up with is a nice, tightly sealed joint that looks great. Now, that's terrific for joints that are that narrow, but anything wider than 1/4 of an inch, as we have above the window here, you can't just apply the caulk, because the caulk can't fill that big a gap. So the solution is to first install some foam backer rod. You can get this at any hardware store or home center. It comes in various diameters. And you want to wedge it in there. In this case, I'm using a 5-in-1 painter's tool, but you can use a wood shim or even a putty knife. And you want to jam it up into the crack, and you want it about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 to 1/4 inch below the surface. And then what we're going to do, once we get the backer rod installed all the way along the entire crack, we're going to come back and apply some caulk, wipe it off, and it'll look good as new.
Well, it's only been about 3 weeks since we started this kitchen expansion project, and already the guys have the drywall installed and the first coat of tape and joint compound in place. The drywall finisher still has a good bit of work to do, and our heating and cooling contractor's in the process of relocating the pipe for our vent hood because we moved it over just a little bit. That'll be the last little bit of disturbance of the drywall so that the finisher can complete all of his work. Then we're ready for trim and ready for cabinets. You know, when we first walked through this space, it was such a dark and gloomy area. We had dark paneling in this area, dark carpet, dark cabinets, and really it didn't have very much natural light or artificial light. Well, that's completely changed now since we removed this wall. We can't believe the influence these front 3 windows have in terms of the natural light that penetrates this whole entire area. But at night, there will still be plenty of light because of all of the recessed housings and recessed lights that we've installed. Both in this area, we have 11 just in this one part of the project. Over here, we have an additional 8. Now, this took a little time to lay all of these recessed lights out because you want to make sure that it has kind of a little bit of symmetry to it and things are lined up real well. So that takes a little bit of time. But once they were ready to install these lights, particularly these, it went very quickly because this is what you call a remodel can. All they had to do is to cut the round hole, do the wiring on the housing, and then it slipped right into place and locks into the joist up above. Now, these are great for a situation like this where you're trying to minimize the amount of drywall that you want to disturb because, as you can see, no repair work's needed on any of those fixtures. But there are a few patches here and there. This is where we had an old light fixture that was hanging here over a little breakfast table. And what you're seeing here is what a drywall finisher calls a hot patch. Basically what a hot patch is, I have one over here I wanted to show you. All right, they basically take a piece of drywall and then they cut away all the excess other than what's needed to go into the hole itself. Then when he comes out later today, he'll remove these nails and he'll actually use the joint compound to completely make that disappear. This is a great way of patching any holes that you may have in a ceiling or a wall because you're not having to cut such a large area of drywall out in order to nail it to any adjacent rafter or stud if you're dealing with it on the wall. So really, the next person we need to see out here is our drywall finisher. In this case, that would be a guy named Mark who's been doing this for a long time. So long, in fact, that he makes it look very, very easy. But this is one of those skills that, while it isn't really that strenuous, it does take a delicate touch to perfect. Mark's on a schedule because as soon as he's done, the new kitchen cabinets arrive and start going into this project. Oddly enough, they're darker than the ones that were here before, but they certainly don't look as dated. Now these guys love this kind of layout because they can start hanging the cabinets in a central corner and work their way out. When they're done with their work, it's time for the trim to start going in around all of the cabinets. There's also new crown molding going up and plenty of wood to wrap the cased opening in the center of the room. As soon as the trim work was complete, our painters were right behind them, out on the job, priming, painting, caulking, everything necessary to complete the paint work, and they're about halfway through with it. Now, you know, you hear all the time about what it takes to get professional results when you're painting around your home. Well, one of the best things you can do is have adequate lights. You can see the work lights are everywhere around here, and the reason we're using those instead of all of the recessed lights that we've installed is they're going to do a lot of spraying on this project. We didn't really want any of the overspray getting on any of the bulbs or the finished trim, so we're leaving those off until all of the painting's completely finished. Now, another way to get professional results is to use a sprayer anytime that you can. Now, they've already put one coat on all of the trim, and now they're in the process of just sanding and touching it up to make sure they get any of the imperfections out of the wood before they spray it again. And of course, not all projects are conducive to spraying because you can get a lot of overspray here and there, but this one, with it being wide open and then being able to cover up any of the finished wood, makes it very easy to spray and get that nice gloss look on the trim. Now, they'll be rolling the wall color on. This is one little sample of it. It's called Desert Tan, and if you have that color contrasting with the gloss white finish, contrasting with the dark cabinets, this whole place should look pretty good, but still maintain that bright, airy feeling that the homeowners wanted. Now, we're doing a lot of upgrades on this kitchen, but you can do a simple upgrade with something that Emily has in this week's Best New Product.
Hey, here's a question for you. How many times a day do you think that your refrigerator gets opened? You know, I bet if you tried to count it, it would probably make you cry. And of course, that's just the adults in the house. With kids, you might as well just take the door right off the hinges. Now, obviously, opening that big door over and over and over lets the cold air escape and wastes energy. So GE designed their new Adore refrigerator with a refreshment center that opens from the outside. Now, this means that you get convenient indoor access to your favorite foods and drinks. Now, the controls are also on the outside so that you can set the temperatures without ever opening the door. And there's also a child lock and a door alarm. There are pull-out baskets in the freezer and pull-out shelves in the fridge so that you can reach all of your favorite foods easily. Hey, and here's another cool feature. The water dispenser delivers up to 100 ounces of filtered water per minute, so you don't have to wait all day to fill a coffee pot or a water pitcher anymore. Now, this model right here is stainless steel, but it also comes in clean steel, graphite metallic, high gloss black, and high gloss white. So I guess the only thing that it doesn't do is bring you your soda.
Hey, we're back out on our kitchen expansion project and things are moving right along. You can see our cabinets are all in place and they're covered up right now because our painters are doing a lot of spray work on the ceiling and all of the nice gloss white trim. Our countertops are almost complete and they're in the process of putting it in. And fairly small kitchen in terms of countertops, so it didn't take them long to bring in the different slabs and put them in place. They still have a little bit of work to do, but you know, I love it when a subcontractor has a little gadget that solves a very common problem. And here's the gadget our granite contractor has. It's a vacuum pump that's basically called a seam puller. Starts off with a little air compressor in this toolbox, then the hoses go up and attach to these 4 pads that keep it attached to the countertop on each side of the seam. Now, you know, granite comes in some fairly large pieces, but still, when you're turning corners, you're going to have a seam here and there, and that's where the problem can occur later on. That seam comes loose really hard to get it back together. So what they do is they use a 2-part epoxy where they have a putty and then the cream hardener mixes with it, and then you have just a few minutes to butter up the end of the countertop pieces, and then to hold it together, this does the trick. The air pressure holds the pads down, and then this adjustment holds the seam together, and these adjustments allow you to make sure that the top surface of each side of the seam is perfectly level. You leave this on for a few minutes and you never have to worry about that countertop seam coming apart. I've seen them use this a lot, never seen any problems with the seams at all. Now, they have just a little bit more work to do on the backsplashes here, and they have the sink, that their stainless steel sink they're going to glue in place there. Then the next step will be a larger piece of granite going on the center island. When the backsplashes are secure, the under counter-mounted sink is set and sealed. Then it's finally time for the island top to go in, and boy, is this one big piece of granite. Its weight pretty much keeps it in place, but the guys still add a little silicone adhesive to be sure. Now, one thing is certain, this island will be the thing that catches your eye as soon as you walk in the room, and that's exactly what we wanted. Now, the painters have a little more work, and as soon as they finish up, the job is turned over to our flooring contractor. Now, they're using a leveling compound to smooth out some of the bumps that were created when the old flooring was removed before they began installing the new tile. And there is a lot of tile in this place, but it goes in pretty quickly since the pieces are so large. After just a couple of days, they're spreading grout. It used to be that ceramic was only installed in bathrooms and kitchens. Nowadays, people are installing ceramic all throughout the house. Here we have it in the kitchen, breakfast area, all through this adjacent living area, as well as the foyer and the hallway that goes right down the middle of the house. Now, one of the things that we've done here is use a larger tile. This is actually a 20-inch by 20-inch, and that really helps us to keep the spaciousness that we wanted in this area. Now, over 900 square feet of ceramics already been installed, but the ceramic contractor's not through yet. A little mistake was made here in that the granite contractor thought we were going with a traditional 4-inch backsplash. Well, the homeowners always wanted ceramic on their walls for their backsplash, so that was removed, and very soon the contractor will be back putting the 6-inch tile on all of the area behind the countertops. Then we'll install appliances and this project will be complete. Now, speaking of appliances, we have a question this week from one of our viewers about that very thing.
Hey Danny, do you have any secrets to keeping appliances clean? I spend more time cleaning than cooking.
Well, Carolyn, we all want a good-looking, clean kitchen, but it's really hard when kids are around. They seem to find a way to get fingerprints on every appliance in the kitchen, especially the refrigerator. Now, having a textured finish refrigerator helps to hide those fingerprints, but you may want to also consider stainless steel. Now, these usually have a slightly higher price tag, but many homeowners just like the look and the low maintenance of stainless steel. But to really battle those fingerprints, don't get 100% stainless steel. You want to look for a mixture such as stainless steel and nickel. Unlike ordinary stainless steel, these composite materials are virtually smudge-proof. While they can get dirty, they can easily be cleaned with a damp cloth. Then every now and then you'll want to use a stainless steel cleaner spray on it to really bring back the shine. Well, we started off this project with a kitchen and family room that were very much stuck in the 70s. The Harvest Gold appliances, butcher block countertops, and funky vinyl floors were screaming to be updated. The den's paneled walls and worn shag carpet were begging for some attention too, not to mention a little opening up of the floor plan. So that's what we did. The walls are gone, and now there's one big wide open space where there used to be 3 separate rooms. There's also tons more natural light throughout the whole area, which now incorporates family and kitchen space into a large, truly open floor plan. The brightly painted drywall is a great change from the dark paneling, and the new tile floors offer a much cleaner look than the tired old carpet. Now, the kitchen has made a step up too, with all new appliances, rich wood cabinets, and this gorgeous granite with tile backsplashes to replace that butcher block laminate. This is a far cry from the 70s flashback we started with. You know, not only have we updated this part of the house, but we've also made it a lot more functional for Eric and his family. I mean, think about it. The kids can have plenty of room to spread out and play here while all the activities in the kitchen are taking place. You know, I can see it. Once they get everything moved in and just like they wanted, they can enjoy their new house for years to come. Hey, I'm Danny Lipford. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.